Good evening and welcome to Thorold City Council. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I'll call for the adoption of the agendas, moved by Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Neal, that Council adopt the agendas as published in the July 12, 2018, and any other or all revisions published in July 17, 2018.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. I'll move right into the mayor's report, and it's brief tonight. Front Street will be closed this coming Saturday, July 21st, for the BIA's 14th annual car show. Cars of all makes and models will line Front Street between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. Admission is free, and so is registration. For more information, please go to www.thoroldbia.com. Please be advised that Thorold municipal offices will be closed for the civic holiday on Monday, August the 6th. Regular office hours will resume on Tuesday, August the 7th. This is also a reminder that there will be only one council meeting in the month of August that is scheduled for Tuesday, August the 7th. And that concludes my report. There's no regional councilor update. I'll call for the adoption of the minutes. Council and General Committee meeting minutes of July 3rd, 2018, and I'll call on Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Payon that the Council and General Committee meeting minutes of July 3rd, 2018 be hereby adopted.
Thank you. Are there any items for this discussion in these minutes? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. General Committee meeting minutes of June 8th, 2018. Councillor Wilson. Yeah, stay seated. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Whalen, that the General Committee meetings minutes of June 8th, 2018 be hereby adopted.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any items for this discussion in these minutes? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Are there any conflicts of interest, councillors? Seeing none, we have no public meetings, no civic recognitions, and we have two presentations. One is by Enbridge. Do we have a representative of Enbridge? Please come to the podium, sir.
Do you need to check presentation?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Okay, very good. Thanks. Want me to start? Yes. Good evening, Your Worship. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mayor Ted Luciani, council members, Fire Chief Brian Dixon. I am pleased to be here today on behalf of the Fire Marshal's Public Fire Safety Council with Enbridge Gas Distribution and Thorold Fire and Emergency Services for Project Assist. The role of the council is to develop partnerships between members of the fire safety community and the general public. Project Assist is a strong example of these partnerships at work. Since the launch of Project Assist in 2012, Enbridge has contributed $700,000 in funding to this unique campaign. Each year, 25 departments receive $5,000 to purchase resources to supplement firefighting training in their departments. Regular training is an important part of being prepared for any hazardous situation, and Project Assist contributes to the overall firefighters' health and safety by improving access to training materials. I would like to thank Enbridge Gas Distribution for its long-term support and commitment to this important initiative. I would like to also congratulate Fire Chief Dixon and the Thorold Fire Department and Emergency Service for being selected to take part in this beneficial program. Thank you for your time today and for demonstrating your commitment to making this province a safer place to live. Thank you.
Just like to add a few words to that. Our district office for the Niagara region at Enbridge is located right around the corner in Thorold's response area. Thorold Fire is a great resource for us. We recently had a health and safety breakfast, sort of a healthy safety week kickoff. Chief Dixon came down with his daytime crew. Obviously, they were ready to respond, and he did an excellent presentation for our 120 staff that were there. So Thorold Fire is really integral to Enbridge gas distribution for the Niagara region. At Enbridge, safety is number one. It's our number one priority. We want people obviously to use natural gas, but we want it to be used safely and properly. And when something does go wrong, we want to assist the firefighters and the emergency response people when they have to respond to those such emergencies. So projects like Project Assist, where we offer a credit for training material, is a perfect fit. So I thank Thorold Fire and I thank the City of Thorold.
Thank you. You want to come forward? Sure.
Thank you, appreciate it, thank you.
Chief, you can put it up at the station. We'll return that to the chief. You can put it up at the station. Okay, our next presentation is by Stephen Armstrong, Armstrong Planning and Project Management. Welcome, Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you very much for having me. Mr. Mayor, member of councils, my name's Stephen Armstrong. I'm here on behalf of Port Robinson Estates, or Empire Communities. Just briefly, as you may know, we're constructing and developing a project we call Legacy. In December of 2016, council approved this project for 471 units, zoning, official plan amendment, and draft plan approval. Since that time, sales to date on this project, we've sold 325 lots out of the 471. So obviously another great success in the Niagara region. We're really enjoying our time out here. But also for council's information, during this period as well, we've built just under $13 million of infrastructure in the area via sanitary pipe, stormwater management, road improvements, a roundabout, and et cetera. However, through this process, there was an unfortunate discovery that there's an error or an omission in the bylaw that was presented in the staff report. There was a discussion on lot coverage. And not to get down in the weeds with councilors, which I'm prepared to do, is there was a discussion and a recommendation that a series of amendments be made to your city zoning bylaw with respect to setbacks and the way we build the homes, which is really bring the porch forward, garage back, and side yard. So it's all about urban design and community building. With that, though, there was a request that no lot coverage be provided in the zoning bylaw. That was in the staff report that you all saw in 2016. It was passed for approval, but through an error on behalf of our part and some editing, it was never included in the bylaw. So when we went to go for our permits this year on 87 of the homes don't comply currently because they're over the coverage that we thought did not apply. So I'm here tonight asking council, and there's been some discussions with our lawyer and the city lawyer, that I'm asking council to authorize staff to do what we call a house cleaning bylaw, where you basically come in, which you've done before recently in the city, where you say the staff report in the public meeting described this, it was missed, it was an error. but let's clean it up and bring an amendment to the bylaw where it just speaks that the lot coverage isn't applicable, and then we're able to move on with the project. It's a real problem for us. Many of our lots don't meet this, any of the homes, so we've put many on hold right now. So it is quite dire. As we mentioned, we've got significant infrastructure. We've got people that have bought these homes, and these 87 critical ones are people that are in our first set of closings, so we're anxious to get this resolved as soon as we can get it back to you for approval. As well, just for council's benefit again, or just some numbers is, in terms of development charges for the community as well, I need my reading glasses, the 325 sold lots represent approximately $4 million for the community in development charges. And as part of our registration, which the plan's fully registered, the lots legally exist today, they're out there, the hydro's in place, everything's in place. I just drove out again tonight. They're sitting there with the wires up in the ground. We've expended a lot. We're excited about the project, and so tonight I respectfully ask if council can authorize staff to do that. We understand through discussions that staff can do that once council authorizes them to proceed. So I can answer any questions you have on that, but that's my request.
Are there any questions for our presenter? Okay, you said that our city lawyer, our planning lawyer, and your lawyer got together and agreed that this would be what you're requesting, they're both in agreement with.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, they've spoken, and they're both in agreement from a legal point of view. This is the best way to move. It's the cleanest way to go. You need to amend the bylaw. The house cleaning means there doesn't need to be a full process. We don't see any need because you've already, as a council, decided that it's appropriate in June, so you can move forward. But what we've been told by your lawyer, who says it's a good idea, but you have to go to council and
I'll ask the same question of our manager of planning, Mr. Darbison.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is an amendment to the bylaw. It's still a public process. Under the Planning Act, we have to go through the public proceedings of the Planning Act, which means a public meeting, notice, and a staff report, and ultimately a council decision and an appeal period. So it's not a simple throw an amendment in. There is a public process.
So, Mr. Mayor, sorry, not to add a different, you've recently, as a city, did another house cleaning amendment on a project. I'm just trying to find out. I did some research on it that where basically no staff report was provided, and it moved forward. Typically, my experience in other municipalities, and we've done this in Brantford, is that no staff report is involved. And I believe the last time you did it, sorry, I can't find it right in front of me, was in 2017. And there was no, sorry, what was the project name? It was Merritt Meadows. And I guess, and again, this is why we're here, is we would prefer a process where you come in, you provide a zoning bylaw amendment. Your manager's correct, it does require notice after the approval. There's some municipalities that do public notices and some don't. If you choose to do a public notice, it's your decision and the way your regulations are set. City of Vaughan, Markham don't do public notices on corrections, but they do notices of the approval. I guess my point is you've done the house cleaning before. Given the urgency and the amount of sales we have in the area and the fact those lots are sitting there fully serviced, I frankly don't see how it's good use of staff's time to redo a staff report when you have a fulsome report that covers the issue in a fulsome way.
The problem is I've been just made aware of this today. Council hasn't been made aware of anything. Council doesn't know basically what's going on. I don't know what to say to you because we don't have the information to really make a judgment today, and other than maybe ask for a report. Okay, Mr. Darbyson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not familiar with what the presenter is describing in terms of avoiding, well, sorry, I shouldn't say avoiding, but the rules on passing of notice and involving the public. The bylaw was passed, it's in place, it's in effect, and the only way that I'm familiar with changing a zoning bylaw is through the public process under the Planning Act. So I'm not familiar with what Mr. Armstrong is presenting. I don't believe it to be correct.
How long will this process take?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our standard process is to have a pre-consultation meeting and an application be filed and a public meeting be held. We do have the ability to have a public meeting and a council decision the same evening. We would be willing to work to expedite the application, but there does need to be an application.
So, Mr. Mayor,
sorry, to finish the question.
Go ahead.
I mean, I don't have the calendar in front of me, but we could meet the September public meeting, the very first meeting in September, and ask council for a decision and to pass the bylaw that same evening.
That's the first meeting in September.
So, Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't want to
I'll allow you
publicly
to
debate
speak.
it. And I don't mind if you want to do public notice. I'm more than happy to provide that information tomorrow with respect to how the regulations work on notice. I've got it in front of me, I can tell you, but I don't even want to quibble on that. What I'm after tonight is for council to authorize staff to proceed with the house cleaning bylaw. I don't believe you need a pre-consultation because, again, I'm going to come back to the point. We've had the pre-consultation. We've done the report. You've approved the report. It was omitted from the bylaw because of an error in writing the bylaw. So all you'd be doing is having a pre-consultation on something we've already done. So my request, if we want to make it simple for council, is to authorize staff to proceed with the house cleaning bylaw, and then you can leave the details to us to speak to your staff.
I would need a councillor to put that motion on the floor. And we would have to waive the rules first to be able to even discuss it, for anybody to put it on the floor. So I would need a motion to waive the rules, and then I would need a motion to accept your proposal. Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to put through the motion that we waive the procedures and then put it up to the floor for some negotiation. So we waive the first part, then we'll put it on the floor for some discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
First motion on the floor is to waive the rules and allow the motion to be brought to the floor. That's the motion on the floor. Discussion to the motion. No discussion? I'll call the question. I need a seconder. Councillor Neal. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. That passes. It's carried.
Thank you.
Can you please pass that information on to our clerk?
Yes.
No.
The second motion on the floor.
Pardon?
We need to put that second motion on
The second motion on the floor. You just put one motion on the floor, Councillor, didn't you? You're putting the second one on also?
Yes, please.
Okay. It's seconded. I'll call the question on the second one.
Hang on.
I'll call for discussion on the second one. I'll call for discussion on the second one. Councillor Pion.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I voted yes to the first option because it simply said that we can discuss it. And since we were already discussing it, I figured, you know, let's pass the motion so we can formalize it. I guess I just need some information. When was this error detected?
Yeah, so it was detected when we submitted our permits to come in for the homes
And how long ago was that?
a month ago.
A month ago.
And again, for everybody's information, I think we were all, again, wrongly proceeding on the fact that the coverage wasn't applicable. Just to, again, give council another reason why it's an urgency. We've built 2 model homes out there, and to be completely transparent, one of them exceeds the coverage allowed under the bylaw. The permit was issued because I believe we all felt that it wasn't covered. So again, we're here in front of you saying, let's find a solution that meets our time needs, but also meets the requirements under the Planning Act.
Thank you. Through you to our Director of Planning. So my understanding is that this is a house cleaning bylaw to effectively put in what was agreed upon. That's the way. Now, how would you put it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's the request that's being made. However, it's still a public process and it still requires a review by planning staff. My understanding is that the lot coverages are, I think the greatest one is at 51%. And we would be having a look at what is actually needed versus what is being asked for by a previous planner that had worked here. So therefore, through that public process, we would be making our own recommendation to council.
Just a follow-up, if I may. I guess what I'm asking is that the speaker is requesting to essentially correct the error of not including what was originally agreed upon. Is that correct? So I guess what I'm asking is, when the council decision was made to change the lot coverage, was there a public process at that point? And if so, why do we need to go through another one?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was a public process at that time with the staff recommendation report, which was highlighted in the letter that was provided. However, under the Planning Act and under planning ethics, each planner responsible for reviewing a file has to make their own independent professional recommendation to council based on the circumstances.
Yeah, I'll let others.
Councillor Longo? I thought I saw you with your hand up. Okay, Councillor Neal.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify what Councillor Pion was just mentioning, when we originally had the public meeting back in 2016, I believe it was, when the report came forward and we went through all of that, the report included what you're talking about. It was the actual city that when they did the bylaw, excluded it from the bylaw inadvertently. Is that what I understand happened back then?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware if it was excluded inadvertently, but it's through our most recent legal opinion, it was determined that lot coverage of the parent zone still applies. So it wasn't written in there, and that's the problem that we're facing tonight.
So, okay.
Councillor Pion.
I guess I'm still a little confused, but I'll just try. If council had made a decision before to change the lot coverage, isn't that in writing somewhere? Isn't that covered in minutes or a decision by council? And if so, why isn't, I guess I'm asking, I'm not a lawyer, but why isn't that binding?
Repetition's already done it, screwed up, so.
And therefore, we just go ahead with what we originally decided?
Yes, through you, Mr.
That's what's confusing me. If we originally made the decision to change the lot coverage, and that was a council decision, so obviously somewhere there's a record of this, then isn't that a binding decision?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the bylaw that actually gets passed is the binding document, and that bylaw is subject to appeal within 20 days, and it was not appealed. So therefore, we're stuck with it.
Okay, so I'm starting to understand it a little better. So this is basically a legal issue. It's not an issue of any changes that were not agreed upon initially. Now, according to what you're saying, is there any way, since council already, it's an unusual situation, is there any way that we can go ahead with what council originally decided? Because by going ahead with the process you're saying, it would be as if this has never been brought up before, that the issue of lot coverage had never been brought up before, that it had never been discussed. But if the issue of lot coverage was brought up, if it was, I assume, thoroughly discussed, and then a decision was made to change the lot coverage, is there any way legally, I mean, I'm told that our lawyers seem to think there is there any way that we can go ahead with just basically what council already had decided? Or are we going to get into trouble if we do that? I'm just trying to figure this out because I wish we had, frankly, our lawyer here to consult on this. But failing that, it's...
Sir, can I add some insight so I can tell you?
Go ahead, sir.
From a staff report, to answer your question, and again, I didn't want to photocopy this, this is the staff report. This is a chart that was in it that talked about all the changes in it. Maximum lot coverage, not applicable. Lot coverage, not applicable. And staff has a commentary on it after talking about the lot coverage as being controlled by setbacks, and the non-applicable is part of the bylaw. At the end, they recommend approval of the official plan amendment, the zoning bylaw amendment, and the draft plan conditions. Under the Municipal Act and the Planning Act, council has the authority to issue I call it house cleaning, but an amendment to the bylaw to correct an error. Your manager's right, you can put out a public notice of that, but it doesn't require a new application because it's city initiated. That's what your lawyer is telling our lawyer. That's why I'm here tonight. It's city initiated. You put out a notice, you pass it. Unfortunately, we do have an appeal period. It's correct. But it's a condensed period where you follow this, and because you're the same council that passed it, it's actually more relevant because it's not a new councilor. Whether there's new planners on the file, and which there is, but your city manager was also the planning director at the time who signed the report, is you as a council, right, and again, I don't want to play lawyer because I'm a planner, have made a decision and have directed staff to approve a staff recommendation that among a bunch of items excluded lot coverage. We've gone out and we've registered this plan of subdivision, registered lots, paid the monies to registered, put in almost $13 million of services, have built 2 model homes, and have sold 371 lots with a mistake in a bylaw, which I'm owning to. But that's why the Act allows council to correct these errors, because they find no one's perfect and mistakes happen. And I'm here saying, given the magnitude of the sales and the magnitude of what's on stake, is we frankly don't believe it's right to put us through a whole new planning process as if it never existed. Because I'll flip it around the other way. What if something happens and it doesn't get approved and we have all these lots sold? I mean, one of the answers would, do you file 125 minor variance applications? That's ridiculous. Talk about using staff time unwisely. So although it's not a great process and you use it rarely, right? I found one example where you've used it in 2017. I've used it maybe 4 times in my 30-year planning career. In Brantford, lot coverage was missed, so now I'm 0 for 2 on lot coverage on one bylaw. But the same thing, right? We work with the municipality and we bring it forward. So again, I respectfully submit that council authorize, as per the discussions, and unfortunately the lawyer's not here, but if you authorize staff to do it, then staff will bring it forward to council. Council gets to vote on it. Hopefully it's the same vote as before, and then it moves forward.
The clerk has something to say right now with regards to a revised motion.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I prepared a motion that says that staff be directed to proceed with an expedited process amendment for Port Robinson Estates to capture lot coverage issues that have been detected during the building permit phase, and that staff proceed to prepare a report in accordance with the Planning Act to be presented on September 4th, 2018.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
That's fine.
Good with that.
I mean, I'll take August 7th, but I'll live with September 4th.
I was just going to throw August 7th in there. But,
Thank you.
Can we do that
Listen,
on August 7th?
if, sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but if that's what everybody can agree with, and again, we want to work with you, because remember, this is the first phase of, I'm here for a while, you're going to see me again, so we want to develop a relationship, and unfortunately, my first time in front of you is to correct a mistake.
And I've told you people before, my opinion has always been, I want to grow my community, and I want houses to be built, and with the least amount of delays. So that's my opinion, and I'll open the floor for discussions on the motion down and just put on the floor, and I'll go to Councillor Pion.
Yeah, I can agree to that. I just want to, because one of the things missing tonight here is there's been talk of the lawyers communicating, but we have no information of what the lawyer said. Do I need to formally put it in the motion that the lawyer should be consulted, or does that just go along with the direction to staff? I just want to make sure that the information from the lawyer comes back to us.
We'll talk
So
to
we're not
Ellen
all
about that.
playing lawyers. None of us has the degree, so I'd like to know exactly what the lawyer says, because I'm in agreement with this. It's just, I'm trying to sort out the legal hurdles. Legally, I need to know that. In terms of, if it's true that we agreed on it before, then I don't see an issue, but I want to make sure we're doing everything by the book legally.
Councillor Ugolini.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll be supporting that motion. Do you want me to put it forward, or?
It's already there.
It's on the floor under the friendly amendment.
It's moved by Councillor Ugolini then. Okay. Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we leave that date wide open just by chance? If we get it done in August, great. If not, September? So, if parameters,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would like to have the opportunity to speak with our lawyer specifically to clear up any legalities. Should that be the case, and there's no public proceedings required, then it's possible. However, I'd like to caution council that, if our lawyer advises us that we go through a full public process, then it has to be left at September.
so that being that case, if we're getting direction that way, can we have August so we get it going as soon as possible? If you push it out September, you're looking at October, November.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's fine, as long as it's left open-ended.
Sounds good.
Go ahead.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll amend the second part of the motion to say no later than September 4th, 2018.
Perfect.
Okay. That's a motion on the floor. Do you want to hear it again? Everybody's okay? Okay, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Well, thanks for coming. So I go right now? We'll wait for them. Okay, we'll move into motions for support. And the first motion, I'll ask Deputy Mayor Whalen to give me the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take the floor if you could read your motion to council.
Thank you very much. And my motion reads, whereas the hydro and arena properties are valuable to our downtown future sustainability, and whereas these properties are the last pieces of land the city owns in the downtown area, and whereas these lands should be maintained for future uses such as possible relocation of City Hall, our library, or new arena, now therefore be it resolved that the city maintain these properties in in its possession for a period no less than 6 years before entertaining any thoughts of selling these lands. And, well, we had discussions tonight on properties in the downtown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll put it to the floor for discussion and comments.
Can I I would like to,
Sure.
as
Okay, go
as
first.
the mover, I have the right to speak
Yep, for
first?
sure.
Okay. Like I was saying, we've got some very, very valuable properties downtown that we have to think many years down the road of what's going to happen downtown. It's exploding down there. And to give these properties away for any other reason than city use, meaning arenas, maybe city hall, fire station, who knows? So I want these properties not to be, no entertainment of selling these properties for at least 6 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there any discussion or comments from the floor? Councilor Ciccolini, Councilor Hanley, Councilor Longo.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. I don't know why we're putting 6 years. I don't think we should be entertaining selling these properties, period. This is city-owned land downtown. It's valuable property. It's part of what we're trying to do downtown, and I don't even want to, I think we should be looking at uses for the city to make the downtown even better. So I'd like to put a friendly amendment to remove the 6 years.
What would you put in its place? In perpetuity?
I would just take it right out.
And I'd have to have a time limit.
So, Mr. Mayor, you open to a friendly amendment to just take the time limitations up? So the whole bottom sentence.
Let me read that line again.
So be open to, that the city maintain these properties in possession without any period of time.
Continue with other speakers.
Okay. Councilor, you finished with that?
Yeah.
Okay, Councilor Hanley.
Why don't we just deem, I get, the Mayor, why not we just deem the property that we're not going to sell? It's not on the open market. Right? So we need to be discussing that.
Yeah, I believe that's what the friendly amendment, yeah.
Yeah, but 6 years of gratuity and that stuff. We have several properties, we got a buyer that's affected with properties that we have thrown on. So if we're only gonna, are we only gonna target one piece of property? Because I don't know if councilors remember, but a few years ago, we got a blue binder from the city. And we probably own about 150 properties. So we're gonna start deciding which ones we're gonna preserve and which ones we're not. We already made that decision a long time ago. So I don't, I can't even agree to any of 6 years, 50 years, 100 years. We got surplus property. Deem it non-surplus. Bottom line. Save it forever. Deem it non-surplus, and that's it. We don't gotta mention 6 years, gratuity, or anything. It's deemed non-surplus. Because I think that was the intention of council in about 2009, maybe 2008, when we came up with the binder, when Adele was here. And we, at that time, were asked which properties do we want up there deemed non-surplus and which one's surplus, and that's when we decided to sell the lots for 45 grand and what property we own and which property we were gonna save. So that's my feelings on it.
Thank you, Councilor Hanley. Councilor Longo.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My feelings are a little different here. Although I don't want to see the property sold, I'd hate to handcuff future councils. I don't know why we're doing this at the end of a council term, telling a future council that they can't possibly find a good development proposal for something. Who knows? Maybe these properties could be sold to a developer for senior housing. Now we're handcuffing the next council. Again, I don't want to sell the property, but why are we making decisions at the end of a council term with a present council that's going to have less than 50% of its members here possibly, and handcuffing somebody for 6 years, 16 years, 106 years? I don't know why we would do that. I wouldn't want somebody doing that to me. I don't fear that this land will be sold. I believe that councils will be responsible and do the right thing, and I think we should leave it up to them to do that.
Thank you, Councilor Longo. Any other further discussion or comments? Councilor Pion.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor. Currently, the land is deemed surplus or non-surplus?
No.
It's not
No, it's
deemed
not.
surplus, right. I guess the question I'm putting forward is, decisions of council in the future can always be reversed. Are we putting any restriction on that, or, you know, just majority? So that any future council, if they really want to do this, can reverse our decision. So it would require a majority. Well, I mean, it would require a majority to sell it anyway. So if it would require a majority to sell it in either case, a majority could also just reverse our decision. So it doesn't really, you know, restrict future councils from changing our minds, so to speak, and selling it if they want to. So I'm not sure what protection this gives if it's currently not surplus, I'm not sure what protection this gives the property, because let's say we leave it as it is now. A council would have to decide to sell any property. You have to first of all deem it surplus before you sell it, correct? Am I right?
That's right.
All right. So if currently it's not surplus, if, let's say, the next council wants to sell the property, they would have to first deem it surplus and then sell it. Okay, so if we don't do anything, they have to vote in order to sell it. If we pass this motion, all it says is that we don't want to sell it, but if a future council wants to, they can, if they're intent on selling it, before they deem it surplus, first reverse our motion by majority, and then deem it surplus and then sell it. So I would welcome someone to clear up my confusion here, but I don't see how this motion would protect any more this property.
Thank you. Councilor Galini and Councilor Hanley.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I think that's well stated. I don't think we need any motion, and because I don't think anybody is going to do anything detrimental to the city at the time.
And Councilor Hanley.
Yeah, no, I just think it's a moot point, you know, to say, I don't think that we should be voting on it. To tell you honestly, Mr. Mayor, your motion and that stuff, leave it as is. Why just that property? Like I said, we got 150 properties. You know, we're gonna come here, maybe I'm gonna go home and look at that binder, and I'm gonna come back here and I'm gonna wanna save 20 properties too. So if you save this one, are we gonna do it all? Leave it stand the way it is. We're trying to lock the hands, as Councilor Longo said, of future councils and that stuff, and past councils have done that, and I don't believe in doing that. This doesn't mean the decision that has to be made. As far as I'm concerned, what we're doing today shouldn't even be happening. We got more important things to do than trying to save land that nothing's happening with anyways.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, do you want to leave it as is or a friendly amendment?
Pardon me?
Do you want to change the timelines on or leave the motion as it stands?
Well, I can accept Councillor's Hanley's first. He didn't really call it an amendment, and declare, I could say that the city maintain these properties and declare them non-surplus.
Okay, everybody, I'd like to make one comment before we put to a vote. I feel the same way as other councilors. I don't think we have to. We don't want to sell these properties, so I don't think we even need this motion. So unfortunately, I won't be supporting, but let's put it to a vote. All in favor with the motion as amended? Opposed? Declined.
Could you do that vote over again?
Favor of the motion as amended?
We're voting on it with Councillor Hanley's amendment.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can you read the motion as it stands?
Can we
with
discuss the
amendment?
amendment first? Or
That the city maintain,
Yeah, Madam Clerk, can I have you read the motion as amended?
So the last part of the motion is, now therefore be it resolved that the city maintain these properties and declare them non-surplus.
Okay, everybody's familiar with what? Councilor Phelan.
Sorry, just one
last question.
I just want to clarify what I was saying before. I mean, basically, whether we pass it or not doesn't make a difference to a future council. So it's not like I'm opposed to the motion. I would vote for the motion only to say that we would like to keep the properties, but we're not binding any future council on doing so. And it's good just to put it out there to say that we would recommend to future councils that it's a good idea to keep these properties. So when I was talking before about you know, it doesn't make a difference whether the motion is there or not. I wasn't opposing the motion. I was simply saying it doesn't make a big difference as far as really encumbering future councils. But it isn't a bad idea for us to publicly state it would be good to keep these properties, just to make it a public statement. So I'm in favor of the motion because it does do something.
Okay, so let's put the vote again. All in favor of the motion as amended? Opposed? That's passed.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. We're still in motions for support. I have a City of Thorold one moved by Councillor Payon on the Darlene Ryan.
Thank you.
Community
Through you,
Center.
Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Neal. Whereas the Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Center Board of Management mandate is to foster, improve, and enhance the community center. And whereas the community center in Port Robinson is the hub of a variety of activities in that area. And whereas the Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Center Board of Management would like to continue to offer a few activities throughout the year. And whereas at its May 14th, 2018 Community Center Board meeting, the committee stated their desire to host a sock hop event on September 22nd, 2018 at the community center. And whereas Thorold City Council must provide approval of each activity that falls outside the board mandate, and this does, now therefore be it resolved, 1, that Thorold City Council approve the Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Center Board of Management request to host a sock hop on September 22nd, 2018, and that the cost to a maximum of $1,100 be provided to the Community Center Board to cover some of the expenses for the event, with the mutual understanding that the revenue generated from ticket sale for the event be used to offset the additional expenses incurred, and finally that the Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Board of Management be required to obtain a Liquor Control Board of Ontario permit and purchase additional insurance for this event.
Speakers to the motion. Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And I have Councillor Ugolini, Regional Municipality of Niagara.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Neal, that the correspondence received from the Region of Niagara from its council meeting of June 14th, 2018, supporting the Government of Canada and Government of Ontario in their efforts concerning trade with the United States and protecting Canadian jobs be received and supported.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussions. Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. City of St. Catharines, Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move by myself, seconded by Councillor Longo, that the correspondence received from the City of St. Catharines from its council meeting on June 25th, 2008, standing in solidarity with the Government of Canada by supporting its decision to impose retaliatory tariffs on United States imports effective July 1st, 2018, be received and supported.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussions. Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And we're into statements by councillors. And we have Councillor Ugolini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Operations, or I should say Public Works and Community Services. There was one recommendation that came out of the Parking Committee that didn't make it to recommendations last meeting, so I want to make sure this gets captured and sent back to the Parking Committee to find a solution on a way to implement, and that was the motion that was passed unanimously to allow 2 license plates on 1 permit. And that motion never came up as in the resolutions, so I want to make sure that with the other ones we sent back that we address this and find a way to implement it. So to the Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Council, we will we'll certainly take that recommendation back to the committee with some staff solutions on how that can be implemented.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to elaborate a little bit further on the car show this weekend on Saturday. The Thorold Community Credit Union is putting on a barbecue for the Adam Eggeter Fund for the little boy with cancer. So if everybody's up and around that area to go with the car show, drop by for hamburger and hot dogs, all the proceeds will go to the young fellow.
Thank you, Councillor. We're into notice of motions. Are there any notice of motions? Seeing none, I would like a motion. I will resolve it to general committee, and I'll call this general committee meeting to order. And first of all, are there any conflicts of interest? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to declare a conflict of interest on report PDS 2018-22 due to a family issue.
Thank you. The clerk will note that. I need a motion to. What's the problem, Councillor?
No, we're in discussion reports? Okay, no. Consent reports?
No, we're going consent, then discussion.
Okay.
We have discussion. Yeah, we're into consent. I need a motion to move all the consent items unless someone would like something pulled. Councillor Pion?
So moved.
Does anybody want any of these items pulled for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Discussion items, and we went to So what are we doing here? So it's CC 2018-38, and I'll call on our clerk to read the motion.
The recommendation of the report is that Thorold City Council waive the requirement for a public meeting as noted in bylaw number 137-2012, as one establishment maintains a license and staff have spoken to the owner to advise of the matter. This is in regards to delegation to the Region of Niagara for Business Licensing Unit from the Niagara Regional Police. That Council, the City of Thorold, support the delegation of the authority to the Niagara Region to administer and enforce the adult entertainment established license, and that Thorold City Council adopt a bylaw at its July 17th meeting to delegate the said authority to Niagara Region. That concludes the report.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can I get a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Ugolini. Speakers to the report.
Nope.
No. No speakers. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And I want to move the report PDS 2018-18 up forward. 24 Renfrew Drive, request to waive zoning bylaw amendment application fee. Can I get a mover to move this forward? Councillor Hanley?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And it's, who's reading this? Donna?
Sorry.
Eldon, oh, okay. Mr. Darbyson.
Okay, very good. The recommendations of the report are that council not support the waiving of planning application fees as outlined in report PDS 2018-18. Number two, that should council authorize option one to waive the fees, a resolution be approved to waive said zoning bylaw amendment fees. Number three, that should council authorize option one to waive the fees, that a budget overrun be approved in the amount of $4,990 to cover the cost of the application fee. And that concludes the report.
Can I get a mover for the report? Councillor Whalen.
So move the report.
Speakers to the report. Councillor Neal.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I believe number one, that council not support the waiving of planning application fees as outlined in report PDS 2018-18. I would like to see that stricken stricken from the
So you want that to read, that council support the waiving of planning application fees as outlined in report PDS 2018-18.
Yes, that's.
So you want to, call that an amendment.
Either amendment or take it out altogether.
You would like to amend the report. I just want to clarify something with Councillor Neal first. Councillor Hanley.
If you take out number 1, then the 2 and 3 cover council authorizing that the fees are waived. I believe that's the way that would read.
I think we need clarification from that from Mr. Darvison. If council decides to support the waiving of the planning application, what happens to number 2 and number 3 of the report? I don't see that. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the recommendations there. So essentially, if you're choosing option 1 to waive the fees, then you support a resolution to waive those fees, and which still stands. And then number 3 discusses the request for the budget overrun to cover those costs. So council has the opportunity to amend number 1, as you've discussed, to remove the word not and leave recommendations 2 and 3 as is.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Councillor Ugolini. I'm sorry, Councillor Neal, you were.
Yeah, I was just going to state
talking.
that there was an oversight back when the bylaw was first passed, and the city substantiated by selling the property at the residential rate, but we didn't have it in the bylaw. So that's just clarifying the bylaw.
Councillor Ugolini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree with Councillor Neal in the sense of fairness on this issue and the history of it. I think it's the prudent thing to do. So I'll be supporting Councillor Neal.
Thank you. Councillor Hanley.
I'll be supporting it. Also on the fact, I looked at when I read this report and it said that the implementation of the 1997 comprehensive zoning bylaw, however, 1997 bylaw did not change the zoning back to residential. My concern is, didn't the region take over all water supplies, the discharge of water and the reception of water in 1975 when it became a region 43 years ago? We dissolved our responsibility for a water system then, so in 1997 this should have been changed. For at that time the water was nowhere, the city of Thorold themselves did not control their own water distribution center. So at that time it would have been a region endeavor, it was to be implemented, because the region was the ones, or are the ones, that control the discharge and the supply of fresh water. So this is redundant in all matters that since 1975. The city absolved themselves then of any responsibility for the distribution of water, so this should have been changed 43 years ago. So I'm in support of waiving the fees.
Any other speakers? I have a, go ahead, Councillor Longo.
I just have a question. Where will the budget overrun come from?
Ms. Morrow.
Through Mr. Mayor, it'll just be a general budget overrun that will reduce the revenue potential in the planning department.
Any other speakers? I got a few things to say. First of all, since we're on the budget overrun issue, I have a question why it would be an overrun when it was never a line item in our 2018 budget. I don't understand that.
Through Mr. Mayor, there is a potential, and it is included in the budget, that these types of fees will generate a revenue. Therefore, when we forego revenue, we do recognize it as a potential budget overrun.
Capital Assets Management.
I have trouble agreeing with you, but I won't argue the point. Anyways, we talk about it being possible we'd be precedent setting. I have a problem with that because this, during the city's selling of the lot, an oversight by staff in 1997 when the zoning should have been corrected at that time. So I'm fully in support of the recommendation as amended because of that. And I think that's all I have to say on it. So, any other speakers? I'll call a question on the recommendation as amended, and I'll read the amendment. That council support the waiving of planning application fees as outlined in report PDS 2018-18. And I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Okay, I'll go back to the top of the discussion reports. PWCS 2018-27, capital investment into canteens. And I believe that's Mr. Dre.
It is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that report PWCS 2018-27 be approved and $15,000 be reinvested into the Thorold Community Arena Canteen for infrastructure for from the Arena Reserve Fund. And number two, that report PWCS 2018-27 be approved and $15,000 be reinvested into the sports field canteens from the Capital Asset Replacement Reserve Fund.
Thank you, Mr. Dre. Can I get a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Giuliani. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. PDS 2018-22, site-specific request to allow a 4-foot fence in the front yard of 18 Parktail Drive, and Councillor Wilson has declared a conflict on this one. And PDS. Who's reading this? Who's calling this report? Mr. Darbison? It's PDS.
I'll do it. The recommendations are that council receive the minutes of the Public Forum Committee held July 3rd, 2018 regarding 18 Parkdale Drive for information purposes, that the recommendation of the Public Forum Committee not be supported for reasons outlined in the report, and that council provide direction to staff as to how they wish to resolve this matter. That concludes the recommendations.
Speakers to the report? Councillor Neal.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. First of all, why aren't the recommendations that the committee was presenting to council not here? First of all, I disagree with the recommendations that we not support the recommendations of the committee because the committee recommended that they be allowed to have the fence there, and I went past it again today just to say. I wonder why we're not exempting them, and I can't see a reason why we're not exempting them from the bylaw. And
so you want to get rid of the word in item 2? You want to get rid of the word "not" as we did previously?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And that's you're asking for that amendment, I guess.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I think staff is struggling to support the recommendation from the Public Forum Committee due to the fence that is located at 18 Parkdale Drive, borders 2 sides of the property and is on a curve with a sidewalk that follows the line of the curve. The adjacent property driveways are located on either side. The 4-foot fence does not allow a driver a safe visual of pedestrians, including children using the sidewalk. And if council allows this fence to stay at the 4-foot height, an adult or child is injured due to the driver's inability to clearly see, the city may be held liable because you're going outside of what the bylaw says.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor Niels.
Yeah, I would agree with that if that was the only place in Thorold that's being suggested has happened. But you can go up and down every street, including my street, and I have 3 worse situations than step one, and I disagree that's even a situation on Parkdale. But I could go down my street, and I have to move out into the intersection on 2 separate occasions in order to see whether traffic's coming or not.
Councillor Hanley.
No, I was just saying I don't agree with the report either. Actually, I drove down Parkdale, and on the corner, it's on a bend. It's actually no stop sign. It's there, whatever. And when you get to the bend, you're going right towards Project Avenue if you're coming back the other way. And to me, there's not a problem with the sight line. I did sit on the meeting when we originally recommended that we allow this to occur. And I believe that without having the staff, actually, I know I give the clerk, Donna, accolades, you know, for presenting the report, but an individual from bylaw should have been here and be able to present us with evidence. As you know, you're making a recommendation. Well, you need to come here and explain to us as a representative of the city as how you came about that recommendation, and we're not getting that tonight. So on that fact, I can't support it. On the fact that I drove by myself too, and I can't support it, I didn't find the fault with the sight line myself personally.
I have Councillor.
And we're liable for anything we do in the city.
Councillor Ugolini.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with what Councillor Hanley just said, especially if a recommendation goes against the recommendation of the committee, then there should be somebody here giving the exact evidence as to why. We had a thorough discussion at the committee about safety and other issues as well. There were 2 things which might block this fence from going up. One was safety. And remember that this fence is replacing a hedge that was there. And actually the fence, from the pictures that I saw, the fence that is there now improves the line of sight from that wide hedge that was growing there. So this is actually an improvement to visual. The second thing that you might consider is what the neighbors have to say, and what I was told is that both neighbors have no problem with the fence going up at all. So I'm also wondering why, I thought, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought the way it works is that the committee that met would make a recommendation to council, and then, I know that's not a decision, but then the committee's recommendation comes to council. But this is the opposite of the committee's recommendation. So I'm wondering why we don't have the recommendation of the committee for us to vote on, but we have the opposite of it. So I understand that a committee can't make the decision for council, but they make a recommendation, and then I thought that recommendation, as the committee stated it, should come to council for discussion. But anyway, yeah, I'm on that committee, and it was a unanimous decision that this fence be allowed to have an exemption.
Councillor Ugolini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't sit on the committee, but I sat in as an observer and listened to the argument. And one thing that hasn't been stated, and it's not in the report either from bylaw, if you do the drive, what they did to improve the sight lines is on the corner bend, they put the fence at a 45-degree angle. Instead of coming square, they cut it on a 45 to improve the sight lines, and on the far driveway, they cut the fence on a 45 to improve the sight lines out of that driveway as well. And nowhere in that report did it mention that, and to me, that was a big factor in the sight lines, is the way they put the fence on the angles.
Any other speakers? Councillor Longo.
I haven't spoken this, so I'd ask to defer this so we could have a member of bylaw here to answer any questions.
There's no discussing a deferral motion. So I will call a question on the deferral. All those in favor? Opposed? Defeated? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, we're back to the regular, the original motion. Did you vote? Yeah, I voted. Yeah, I broke the vote.
I'll have that report to come back forward on August 7th.
Yeah, it couldn't be 3-3 if there's 7 of us.
Shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
Sorry, just point of order. There's 7 councillors, so how could it have been 3-3? Because if you
1, 2,
abstain, you
3.
vote, oh, one is, I forgot. So there's only 6 councillors.
Councillor
Thank you
Wilson
for
Oh,
reminding.
yeah.
Anyway.
me
A
too.
conflict. The motion is back on the floor. Are there any other speakers to the motion? Okay, then I will call the question on the motion as amended, and I'll read item 2, that the recommendation of the Public Forum Committee be supported for reasons outlined in this, just be supported. Period. And I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay. Let's see. We did that one. This one. FES 2018-05, request for proposal award sports utility vehicle. That's Chief Dixon.
Yes. The recommendation is that council approve the purchase of a 2018 Ford Interceptor utility vehicle to be used as Car 1 in the amount of $35,860 plus tax, with $30,000 of the purchase funded from the capital account. That number G21101115130, and the balance of $5,860 be funded through a general budget overrun. So concludes the report.
Can I get a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know during budget we did approve the purchase of a vehicle. My concern is the tendering of the document. This is the first time that, well, if I could ask through you, was there other companies that were sent the request for proposals or a tender in regards to this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we followed the procedures of posting it online and in the local newspaper, but I will comment that there's generally usually only one bidder because we're following along the same buying power as all members of the Niagara Regional Police Service who have the same vehicles and other fire service. So there's only really one competitor. That's why there's only one.
Go ahead.
Well, Mr. Mayor, seeing that's a purchase of a pickup truck on April 4th, 2017.
Sorry, just to correct you, that's a sport utility vehicle. It's not a pickup truck.
Sport utility vehicle, but more than one company sells a sport utility vehicle. And I just want to bring a point, if I could, Mr. Mayor, that on April 4th, 2017, we had a process come forward to purchase a new vehicle. We seen where we received 4 bids and which bid was taken. April 4th, 2017, we purchased a 2017 GMC Crew Cab. 4 tenders come forward. We seen what everybody bid. In February 2017, we had a tender for the arena. We got 6 tenders. We had a list. That's my concern. I don't see any other tenders. This looks like a direct buy situation. That's my concern, because also on April 17, 2018, we put out a bid for an 8-foot long box public utility vehicle, 3500 HD heavy duty. We received 5 bids. We put a full-size half-ton pickup truck out for bid. We received 5 bids, which we got a list of all the tenders. January 16th, we put out for data storage. This is the only purchase that the city's made in the last 3 years where we haven't seen what other companies offered. To me, it looks like a direct purchase and that stuff, that no other companies were given an opportunity to bid, because we didn't see them, and I personally can tell you that I did not recall seeing any such sites. I went through the website and to see what it might have been advertised, and I couldn't find anything on the city's website to see how it was advertised for the tender process to purchase a truck, because usually it's an open bid process. So that's my concern.
Chief Dixon, would you like to answer to that?
Again, I can't comment. It was definitely posted in the newspaper. I saw it on the city's website as well, following all the procurement policies. And I'm just going to state that I truly believe that it's just because the pricing is so attractive based on this is piggybacking the same as the Niagara region for buying any vehicles. So that's why there's probably only 1 or 2 suppliers for them, and Ford has it this year. For the next 2 years, they're the low bidder.
Yeah, we don't know that, Mr. Mayor, because I didn't see any other bids. That's my concern. This is the first that I've ever seen a council, to tell you the truth.
Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not saying anything wrong with this bid, but for years there, we were advertising on the Niagara Construction Association website, where you can advertise anything and everything on there. And when we went to this, that's when we started to get the decent number of bids coming in. So that's probably why we're restricting to these types of advertising. We're only getting one. So for future reference, or maybe for this one, maybe we should reflect to that also.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I gotta agree with Councillor Hanley on this. I think we need to go back out and do this over again, the way we normally would do it, the way we've done it always in the past.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Hanley.
Only question is, Chevy makes police vehicles, Dodge makes police vehicles, Ford makes police vehicles. I see them on the road all the time. There's Toyota. There's not only Ford that makes, they might make the only Interceptor because that's a brand name. But as far as a sport utility vehicle goes, I drive up and down the highway every day going to Toronto, and I see the emergency services vehicles and sport utility vehicles, and they're not all Fords. It's just the way the process was done. I'm not comfortable with it. It's not open and transparent as far as I'm concerned.
Anybody, any other speakers? Just a question, Chief, from myself. I'm assuming this is your car.
Yes, that is correct. It would be.
And what year was the old one? The one?
The old one is a 2013.
Okay, and did you trade that car in to get this car?
No, sir. The fire prevention officer and training officer share a vehicle. This would be handed down to the fire prevention officer, so he can, especially with the residential licensing, he's been extremely busy.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Hanley, I don't know how to approach with your discussion. I tend to agree with you that kind of only one bidder, and I don't know how to handle this. I'll look to staff.
Could I have one other thing? Mm-hmm. Does the city actually have an official tender document that they would send out? That is what the city uses for all tenders?
Yes, until that, I can answer that. We followed the exact same tender process that Public Works has used. We copied theirs almost verbatim and just changed the dates and the department.
In that case, Mr. Mayor, they used the Public Works, and the Public Works, when they brought all their 4 purchases together, they came back with a list of 4 or 5 tenders for us to see, not just one. It's the first time it's happened to me in all the years of council. I can honestly say it.
Oh, I tend to agree with you. I definitely recall whenever we buy vehicles, there's always, at least 3 bidders.
We don't know whether or not the process was followed.
Councillor Pion.
I just need clarification, so through you to our fire chief. So you said the procurement policy was followed?
That is correct.
And it was advertised?
Absolutely, 100%.
Was there only one bid?
There was only one bid. There was one bid that came in later that was significantly higher.
Okay.
So I didn't include that bid, but it was after the due date, so it didn't count, and it was significantly higher.
So, I mean, I appreciate what Councillor Hanley is saying, that it's unusual to have just one bid, but if it was advertised and we follow the procurement policy, if there's only one bid, there's only one bid. Now, I understand that that's a bit unusual, but if the process was followed and they had an opportunity to bid, then so be it. That, in my opinion, I mean, if someone wants to clarify why they're opposed to it, then I'd be willing to listen.
I have Councillor Neal, then Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In some instances, if the bids are all too high, you re-bid out again. And maybe in this particular case, that would be an excellent opportunity to send this back and have it rebid out again to see if we can get a better price. So that would be my recommendation that we send this back to staff to rebid out to see if we can get a better deal.
Just to that statement, I'm okay with that, but like I said, I'm going to assume that there's only one bidder. It was followed all the procedures because we're piggybacking on the good deals that has been achieved by the Niagara region, and that's why it's pretty consistent. But
I understand, Mr. Mayor, but I think to satisfy council, I think we should do that.
Councillor Hanley, you had a question?
Well, I was gonna leave it at that. I'll see how council goes, and then however it may turn out and that stuff, just I'll follow up as to the procedure. That's my concern, that stuff. I don't see that we have followed procedure we had in the past. We have a purchasing policy, and I believe it may state in there in regards to a tender document, and I don't believe we followed the way it should be, and that's something we should have a look at. I can't believe that we only got one bid when I went through all the council meetings in 2016, 2017, and 2018, and every vehicle we put out there for bid, we got a minimum of 4 tenders for each vehicle. And for this specific vehicle, we only get one. I can't believe it. I'm stating it looks like a direct purchase to me, and that the opportunity for all wasn't given. I'll say to public, because the documentation or the proof isn't in front of me to show me otherwise.
Councillor Neal, are you putting that on the floor as a new motion, or?
Yes, as a new motion.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll agree with Councillor Neal, but I'd like to add that it be done the same way the city's always done it in the past through Public Works and other departments, and that it be an open process advertised in whatever manner we normally advertise.
Get all that?
I don't mind that added to my motion.
Okay, can you read the new recommendation?
Okay. So recommendation 1 is that council not approve the purchase of the 2018 Ford Interceptor Sport Utility Vehicle. And the addition of recommendation 2 is that the RFP be reissued in complete accordance with our procurement policy for the replacement of the said vehicle.
Okay, everybody got that? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Councillor Whalen.
Mayor, did we do CC 2018-38? I don't think we did that, did we?
Yeah, we moved that one forward.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have no in-camera sessions. No motions arising from in-camera sessions, of course. Motion to ratify recommendations from General Committee, and that'll be Councillor Whalen.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Neal, that the council adopt those items approved by the General Committee meeting on July 17, 2018.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Bylaws. First reading of bylaws. That'll be Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Payon that leave be given to introduce the following bylaws. Bylaw 84-2018, Bylaw 85-2018, Bylaw 86-2018, Bylaw 87-2018, and Bylaw 88-2018.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
And the same now be read a first time.
All those in favor? Final reading of bylaws. Councillor Payon.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Neal, that the bylaws just read a first time be read a second and third time and do pass, and that the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same, any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Council committee and board meeting minutes. Councillor Ugolini.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Neal, that council receive and file the minutes of the committees of council, local boards as presented.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. This was pulled.
No, that's still correct.
No.
But this is for the forum. It's different.
This is forum?
That's forum minutes for May 31st.
Okay, next one, age-friendly committee, Councillor Neal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Ugolini wanted to leave before I stood up to do my stuff.
No, you were too slow.
I'm too slow. Anyways, I have a motion here that the committee, moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Ugolini, that the committee recommendations be hereby supported and approved by Thorold City Council.
Thank you, Councillor. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And we'll move forward to adjournment.
There's one more motion.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Neal?
There's two parts to the age-friendly committee tonight.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Ugolini, that the minutes of the age-friendly housing forum be forwarded to the age-friendly and its housing subcommittee for future recommendations and action, and that the Thorold City Council be kept apprised of any actions taken. That the subject minutes be forwarded to the participants in attendance at the forum. And I'd like to just say one thing, that I enjoyed the meeting. I thought that all the stakeholders that came out, and specifically the development community, all had some good input into the deliberations, and I look forward to the subcommittee or the age-friendly committee looking at these and making some recommendation to the city.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just for a point of clarity, the only minutes that's being approved today are the May 31st. The July 5th were pulled just before council started, as there was a discrepancy in the minutes, so we're going to correct that and bring them back to a future meeting.
Okay. Did I just call that all in favor? All in favor of that one? Carried. Adjournment. Councillor, well, who is that?
I have it.
Councillor Hanley.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Pioni, that we be hereby adjourned at 19:57. 7:57. I know. Well, see, I know, see, I'm...
58.
It says 19.
It's 58.
58 now, 1958. That was a good year.
Is that when you were born?
No,
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
Jimmy, you gotta study that clock. Kid?
I'm gonna try and change it.
Yeah, let's get the...
When we looked at it, it was morning, so we didn't